to raise a child. And I only knew that there was this laboratory, government lab, that seemed to employ everybody in town. And then, of course, I noticed that at the center of our city's seal was the atom. I mean, Livermore's a company town in some ways, the same way that a coal town or a textile town is a company town with a dominant employer. And nobody talked about what was going on there back in the 70s. One of Tri-Valley Care's biggest accomplishments, I think, isn't just the specific things we've stopped or the specific things we've gotten done in the cleanup and things. It's actually that we've spoken. We've made it okay to talk about what's going on in our community. You know, we've put forward the idea that people have a right to clean air, clean water, you know, clean earth to play on, and gotten the public to question a whole lot more. But even when I first moved there, I thought, okay, so now I know they're designing nuclear weapons, and I should come to grips with how I feel about that. And I did about 2 years worth of research before I really decided that I believed that their use under any circumstance would be immoral. But in addition to that, I kind of still envisioned that it was, you know, men and women and computers and white, you know, little white coats. And I need to tell you that the administrative limit for plutonium at Livermore Lab until very recently, until a victory I'll tell you about, was 3,000 pounds. And the administrative limit for highly enriched uranium was over 1,000 pounds. The nuclear weapon design, they don't produce nuclear weapons for the arsenal. That happens in the production sites, and now it's proposed for Los Alamos. But they always made prototypes in the design process. So what's going on at these labs is a lot of work with toxic materials, and a lot of work with different radioactive materials, which, by the way, all turned up in our soil, our air, and our groundwater, and some of our surface water. And so Livermore, main site, where the plutonium facility is, where the vaults are, where the highly enriched uranium is very different than any place else, like it in many ways, other places, but very different. It's only 1.3 square miles. It's in a very populated area. 7 million people are within a 50-mile radius. Earthquake faults are within 200 feet of the facility. And we had security officers tell us they didn't think they would be able to defend it. And I won't go into the details, but with the Freedom of Information Act, we were able to show that Livermore Lab massively failed a security force-on-force drill in 2008. Massively failed. The guys from Department of Energy, the Department of Energy is really the Department of Explosive Energy mostly, it does nuclear weapons. They came out, and Livermore Lab knew a year ahead of time when they were going to be there within a 72-hour time frame. Livermore Lab knew they were going to come there at night, so not when there are 10,000 people at that 1.3 square mile and hostages could be taken and things that would happen in a real life situation. They knew it would be at night. They still were not able to prevent the mock terrorists from getting access to that nuclear material. One team of mock terrorists gained access to the plutonium and highly enriched uranium and held that ground long enough to detonate a radiological device, quote unquote, a dirty bomb. Another team stole it, took it off site unmolested. So when I say massively failed, that's, you cannot fail any more massively than that. And so we were able to use that and some earlier failures to get the Department of Energy to make a final decision that they would take what are called Category 1 and Category 2 special nuclear materials out of Livermore. That happened over a period of years, and it just was achieved September 30th, 2012, which is the end of this fiscal year. So Livermore let go 126 security officers, Gatling guns went bye-bye, which is a good thing. It's 1.3 square miles. Those Gatling guns had a range of over 2 miles, which is where my house is. But they're not allowed to have bomb-usable quantities of plutonium and highly enriched uranium. They can only have smaller quantities. Okay? So now there's a new plan called the Alternative Plutonium Strategy to bring plutonium bomb cores from Los Alamos lab in New Mexico to Livermore. Plutonium bomb cores are by definition bomb-usable quantities of plutonium. It's the bomb. And they're just going to give they're just going to wave a wand over it and give a variance. And so I did some research to try to figure this out. And it's because Livermore has a diagnostic in a small building next to the plutonium facility at Livermore, where you run, it has a shaker pit, it has a thermal chamber, and it has a drop test. And what they're doing is testing how the bomb cores respond in a storage, transportation, or use environment. And use environment is exactly what you're thinking, nuclear war. And rather than take these diagnostics, which the Department of Energy analysis that we've gotten a hold of says that they can do it in 4 trucks, rather than take the diagnostic to where the bomb cores are, they plan to bring the bomb cores across 3 states to where the diagnostic is, each and every time they want to use it. So one of the things I brought, and I would ask you to please help out, is a petition. By the way, where they'll come is probably 5. They'll probably come from Los Alamos across through Flagstaff, swing around here in Southern California, and then go straight up the 5, and then to Livermore, which is where you just go west off of the 580. So I would ask you to please take that. We want to generate several thousand signatures from all up and down California, Arizona, and New Mexico before I go back to Washington, D.C. I'm going back once in mid-December and then again in mid-January to talk to various Obama administration officials and Congress about this plan. It's just a final thing to say this is one example of hundreds of examples I could give you of why it's extremely important that every day, quote unquote, people like you and I pay attention to what's going on in our communities, what's going on with government programs, what's going on with government decisions. Speaking truth to power is one of the most powerful, important things that you can do. And I'll leave you with one quote from Richard Nixon, of all people. But it was discussed, he was asked why he didn't consider using a nuclear weapon in the Vietnam War when it started to turn against us. And he said because the protests were already getting larger and he was afraid of the response of the American people if he used a nuclear weapon. And so I just want to leave that with you, and I hope in an empowering way that you and I and all of the intelligent, thinking, caring people in the world, we are the deterrent. Nuclear weapons are not the deterrent to the use of nuclear weapons. Public opinion is the deterrent. So be aware, be vigilant, don't feel too small, don't ever be disempowered, do whatever you can, don't do more, do whatever you can, and then leave the rest for the next person. And I believe that with all of our participation and all of our work around the world, it is possible to move into a world where nuclear weapons are eliminated and our great, great grandchildren will